Okay, so great. It's a new week, guys. It's a new week. We're looking to take profitable trades. We hope it's a profitable week. Anyway, another chart that we'll be focusing on throughout the week, and hopefully it will yield fruits, is the Australian dollar Swiss franc. Now, remember that before we trade any currency pair, what we have to see first is either a divergence, a fundamental divergence, right? So, what then are we looking at, right? We're looking at the Australian dollar Swiss franc, and what we know is that inflation is slowly coming down for the Australian dollar. Let's just do this so that we can have a visual representation of what we are saying. So we've got the AUD, and then we have got this font is very, very small. Let's make it 15, 16. We've got the AUD, and then we obviously have the Swiss franc, which is CHF, right? Now, we are going to do just a minute of the differentials between these two currency pairs. And I'm going to try and just run through it very quickly, right? Great. This is what we have. The AUD and the Swiss franc. Now, with the Australian dollar, what we know is that inflation is coming down, steady, is decreasing or decelerating, right? Steadily. This is what we know, is that inflation is coming to the 2%. Slowly though. What we know is that the Australian economy is, we won't really say that it's growing in a boom phase, but it's better than most economies. It's absolutely better than most economies because we have got sorry about that. We just wanna check a few things here. Okay, with the Australian economy, we have got, I want to be as factual as I can. We have got GDP. The last figures that we had, GDP year on year, we had the Australian dollar growing to or with 2.1%. That is year on year, and quarter on quarter, we have got GDP slowing down to 0.2% from 0.4%. So the economy is not really in a contraction, but it's not growing as it's not in a boom phase. So the economy is steady, but it's not really, growing to or in that level where we can say that the economy is in a boom phase, right? And then with Switzerland, we have the economy, we have the GDP staying steady at 0.3 from last year, which is year on year. And then we've got quarter on quarter on 0.3 from minus 0.1 from a contraction. So, so things are not looking good for the Swiss franc. for the Swiss francs economy or the Switzerland economy, right? So we cannot say that their economy is growing, right? Because things are not looking very good for their economy. Quarter on quarter, I think they are going to survive a recession, but year on year, they are, the economy doesn't look good. So here we can say the economy is not good. And for a further detailed analysis, we'll do it just to look at jobs and an overall and or a holistic view at the economy. But the Australian economy is not doing very bad, so we can say it's good. And then another monetary policy, we have got a monetary policy issue with the Swiss franc, and the Swiss National Bank is intentionally devaluing their currency, right? So the Swiss National Bank, they said that the Swiss franc is overvalued, meaning that it's expensive. So they are going to intentionally devalue it via monetary policy, meaning that they are going to buy other currencies. They're intentionally going to invest in other currencies just so that they can devalue the Swiss franc. So we can see, another thing that I missed out on is inflation rate for the Swiss franc. So inflation rate for Switzerland is 1.7, which is very close to their 2% target. And it is actually trending away, I think, quarter on quarter. It's actually trending towards, actually, on quarter. Yeah, but we've got very low inflation, meaning that rate hikes, and this was a move up for the previous quarter, right? But inflation is currently moving towards the 2% target. They are not very far from the 2% target. And also interest rate cuts are also in talks for the Switzerland, right? So we've got two economies, one which is very doing good, the other which is not good, and the central bank is intentionally devaluing the economy. And we've got very low inflation. We have got low inflation for where do I copy this? And clone, yep. And then here, inflation near their 2% target. So inflation is near their 2% target. Therefore, we expect the Swiss National Bank to cut rates before the Australian dollar. There's another article we were reading today, and they said that the Swiss franc is most likely to cut rates before the European Central Bank, the ECB, and the Feds. So we can see a divergence there with the Australian dollar to be the last cutting. Oh, sorry about that. Eesh, that was terrible. With the Australian Central Bank to be the last bank to cut interest rates, and then with the Swiss National Bank being one of the first to cut interest rates, we see a divergence there. And then technically, then this is our fundamental bias, but then technically we see on the Swiss franc Australian dollar is that we know via price action that okay, let's just get into the chart. Then the market was, this is on the daily time frame, the market was trending to the downside, found a low. Now when this happens, we've got to ask ourselves a few questions. Uguti, what is happening here? Is it take profit, or is the market buying the Swiss franc, actually the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc? And then we can see that from here, the market then began to rally, right? And then we see when the market revisits the zone again, when the market revisits the zone again, we have the market moving to the upside again. Then this is a confirmed, sorry, this is a confirmed demand zone. We have this test of this demand zone here, and then we also have another retest of the zone. Now, a lot of traders will say that when a zone is traded multiple times, or if it's traded many a times, it becomes strong, right? But then we know by the principles of supply and demand that if the market finds demand at a point for multiple times, then it is the demand zone becomes obvious to a lot of market participants, and therefore the market will then reevaluate the zone. If it was cheap, then the market will reevaluate whether it is still cheap or not. So what are we looking at throughout this week, as we are going to have interest rate decision news tomorrow, and we had balance of trade today? We are looking to buy, depending on the interest rate decision, we are looking to buy the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, technically, how are we going to do that, or what are we looking at? So we've got a huge zone of demand here. We've got the market testing the zone first time. I mean, we've got the market initiating the zone. We've got the market testing the zone. We've got the market again testing the zone here. And here we are still in that zone. So we know that if this was a cheap point in the market, therefore this was a point where the Australian dollar was seen as expensive. So as the market comes down to the point where it was seen as cheap, we are going to look for buy opportunities. Now, how are we going to enter our buy opportunity? Our first entry is an entry that we missed. For this pair, this is what we were looking for, and this is what we were looking at, right? The market moved a reasonable number of pips below this support zone, and the market then convinced breakout traders that this is a breakout of this zone, and then we had a lot of sellers here, and then when this pullback happened, we then have sellers here trading this as a retest of the zone, and then the market closed in, or actually above the zone, with a reasonable number of pips. This was going to be our first entry, and then this resistance was going to serve as our second entry, and then we would be having another last entry close to the lowest of this zone, right? But then we didn't take that trade because we were not in or around our charts on Friday. Now, what are we looking for? What are we looking for as we are approaching the interest rate decision, right? Now, it becomes very tricky when you have such a huge zone of demand and you've got a potential of a stop hunt right below the zone. But in a nutshell, what I'll be looking for buy opportunities here in this zone, as the market is still in that zone. So we'll be looking for confirmation candle entries in and around this zone. But if this zone then doesn't work out and our stop loss gets hit, we will then be looking for buy opportunities right below this zone right here. So we are looking for buy probabilities in and around this zone here, and we are looking if our entries get violated, maybe with our stop losses being here and then somewhere there, and then we are going to look for buy opportunities in and around that zone. So we're looking for buys, but all our forecasts or our outlooks will be or will work out based on what the Australian Central Bank comes out saying as we are headed into the interest rate decision. So that's it for the Australian dollar, Swiss franc. The Swiss franc, or the Swiss National Bank, is devaluing their currency. So in the medium to long term, we expect to see a downtrend for the Swiss franc and the Australian dollar. If they continue to hold rates, we expect to see an uptrend. So we have a divergence there. That is why we are looking for buy trades on the pair. Thank you, guys. Hope this video was useful, and see you soon.